Everyone knows that the Loring Air Force Base incident of 1975 was just a helicopter working a base readiness drill that you tinfoil hat hippies have passed off as a UFO sighting.
This is an example of loaded language wrapped around untrue statements. It is much more productive to simply ask if there is additional information to counter the unsourced claim quickly read and copied from Wikipedia. In this case, there is. Back in 1975, Mike Wallace, no, not that Mike Wallace, but rather this Mike Wallace, was a KC-135 pilot with the 407th Air Refueling Squadron out of Loring. Over a decade ago now, in March 2013, he gave up the details of two separate events and the deliberate Air Force cover-up of UFOs probing the base's nuclear weapons. His sincere effort has only received 18,000 views, and so it might be time for others to echo and supplement it.
The story begins at Loring Air Force Base in northern Maine near Limestone back in 1975. The 42nd Bomb Wing consisted of two Air Refueling Squadrons and a Bomber Squadron. The bombers' mission was to support emergency war orders armed with nuclear weapons.
Now that's the polite summary of a gentleman. In August 1972, it was Loring that first went operational with nuclear-tipped Boeing short-range attack missiles.
SRAM, the short-range attack missile, provides standoff attack capability for the B-52G and H and the FB-111. SRAM possesses a dual mission capability. It can be used as a direct attack weapon. In this role, the carrier aircraft launches SRAM at primary targets a safe distance beyond enemy defenses. In its other role, SRAM is used first for defense suppression. This allows the man-bomber deeper penetration into enemy territory. Remaining SRAMs and lay-down bombs are then used against prime targets.
I'd like to give you some background about the UFOs over Loring before we get into the details of the formation flight. A couple of weeks, or maybe even as few as a couple of days before this particular formation flight, a meeting was called by the 42nd Bomb Wing for all of the flight crews, for all three of the flying squadrons, to be held at the alert facility.
Now is a good time to point out the 42nd's motto, Ethera Nobis, the skies for us, as a threat to any heavenly host.
So, this was unusual. It was the first time that it happened for me in all the time that I had been there, so I was kind of curious as to what this is going to be about. So at the beginning of the meeting, a uniformed major says, listen, if you don't have a security clearance of at least secret, you need to leave. There was only a couple people that got up out of the couple hundred people that were there. The major started off by saying, if you haven't heard, there has been a UFO reported over the base, over the nuclear-armed B-52s that are on alert, over the nuclear weapons storage facilities that had nuclear weapons stored at them at this time. So it was very, very serious situation, and that's what this meeting was all about. It's hovering without making any sound. It does have a few lights. It moves erratically. It can move very quickly, unconventionally. Rapid straight line movements, straight vertical movements, can turn without any apparent radius in the turn, so it's a pretty incredible technology. The wing staff was pretty concerned about it, so they had notified SAC headquarters. And we were told, don't talk to anybody about it if you have one of these incidents. You can talk to us, and we'll be debriefing you, but outside of this room, don't talk about it. And we're also concerned that the local press is going to get a wind of all the extra ground forces and the fighters that we're bringing in to help us deal with this issue. So we're going to tell them that there's a Canadian helicopter crossing the border and harassing us. So I think that's pretty incredible. But that's the background for the story that I'm going to tell you. We had departed Loring earlier in the day. It was a nighttime refueling mission. There were 3 KC-135s in this formation. I was the aircraft commander on the number 2 aircraft in this 3 airplane formation. Tankers formations were referred to as cell flights. There was a lot of vertical separation, a lot of horizontal separation. There was none of this, we're right flying like the fighters do, like this kind of stuff. No, we were way vertically clear. I think 1,000 feet, and I don't know, half mile maybe, so it wasn't very much fun. It was just kind of boring actually to be in a formation flight in a tanker. However, the mission was pretty routine. I don't remember, it was unremarkable in almost every way until we started back. And that's where the fun begins. That's where the action happens. So we are coming back from a refueling mission somewhere south of New York, offshore a little ways. And I believe it was with F-4 Phantoms. Just a routine training mission for both the Phantoms and for us. So as we are somewhere close to, I think somewhere between Bangor and Portland, northbound, coming back to Loring Air Force Base, the command post at Loring contacted us, which was not routine, but not completely out of the ordinary. But when they asked the aircraft commander of the cell leader, the aircraft commander of the number 1 tanker, to change radio frequencies and stand by, they had an important radio call that they wanted to talk to him about. That was pretty unusual. So it didn't take me long to say, hey, I'm going to take one of my spare radios and go listen and see what this guy is going to get briefed on. So I tuned in. Number 3 tanker probably had the same curiosity. He did the same thing, I'm sure. And we're listening to the command post telling the cell formation leader, listen, the UFO is over the base again right now. And we want you to pass off the leadership of the formation of the cell flight to the number 2 aircraft. And then we want you, number 1 aircraft, to turn your lights out, turn your radios off, and head straight to the base at your own discretion. Altitude, airspeed, path, whatever, at your own discretion. Which is unusual, very unusual to hear that. Incredible, as a matter of fact. So I was quite shocked. So the cell leader acknowledges and says, will do. So the next thing you know, I'm getting a call from him. He's contacted me and said, listen, I just got special orders. I have to depart the formation. You're going to take over leadership of the cell. Let the navigators coordinate our positions. When you're ready, you got it. So the navs did that. I was convinced that we were where they said we were. I could see some of the cities, so I knew we were close, so I trusted the nav. And off we went to the initial approach fix, and the aircraft commander of the number 1 tanker turns his lights off. Don't hear any more communications, so he's now radio silent. And in the moonlight, I could see his silhouette, and down he descended into the darkness, heading straight for Loring Air Force Base. I would have loved to have traded places with him. So number 2, now the old number 3, and number 2 and I started to head to the initial approach fix, which is quite a ways south of the south end of runway 36. Runway 36 lands to the north. So going straight to the base is a lot faster, and everything unfolds with that aircraft as he approaches the base well before I make it to the initial approach fix. I start hearing tower channel frequency communications that are really exciting. I've heard some combat radio discussions during some bomb strikes with the F4s, so I can recognize a little stress in the voices, and that was definitely stress in these voices. I wouldn't call it panicked, but it was bordering on frantic as they're talking about, did you see it? Where is it now? Which way did it go? Oh my God, there it goes. And it's down on this end of the runway. It's over East Loring. No, it's back over the alert bombers. And that kind of communication back and forth, quite a few different people talking on the tower frequency. I don't believe I could hear the tanker's crew members chiming in. I'm not sure I would have recognized them. Maybe I would have. I do know that when the tanker is at elevation, with KC-135 is at elevation, the radar, forward-looking radar, has like 240-mile range. I'm not sure what it is. It's substantially reduced at ground level, and they were flying in really, really low, I believe. So the fact that they lost radar contact with the UFO in almost an instant is remarkable in itself. And then they said, I did hear the communication say something to the effect of, we've lost it. And then as quickly as the communications had started on the tower frequency, they ended. So that was kind of the end of the excitement. And my wingman and I continued our normal approach to runway 36. We broke up the formation just after we hit the initial approach fix. So I landed a couple minutes later. The second airplane landed and taxied in. It is in the middle of the night. There's not a lot of action going on at the base that we can see. And we proceeded to our squadron, normal debriefing room. Had a couple of beers, filled out some paperwork, and we're dying to talk to somebody that knew anything about what had just happened out on the base. Couldn't find anybody that either knew it or dared talk about it. So that was kind of the end of that night. The tanker that had departed the formation and gone off to chase that UFO was absent from the briefing room when we got there, and then all of a sudden I remembered that he must be debriefing the major, the same major that gave that meeting that I talked about earlier in this clip. However, the end of the story gets even a little bit more bizarre, because I see the aircraft commander of the first tanker. I'm not going to say his name. I've almost slipped a couple of times and said his name, but I don't have permission to get him involved in my UFO story, so I'm not going to say his name. I see him walking along in front of the base exchange, the BX over at Loring. Just a couple of days after the flight, I believe. So I pulled my truck over and got out and went running over to him and said, what in the hell happened the other night with that UFO? And he looks at me and he goes, I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it. You wouldn't believe me if I could talk about it. So that's the end of the story. And as incredible as it is, that's as true as I can remember. It's been a long time ago, but I had a lot of experience at the time of that incident, and I've had a lot of experience in the cockpits after that experience, but I've never had anything as incredible as that happen. Hope you enjoyed that story. I enjoyed telling it. Bye.